Welcome, folks. I see a lot of new names, which is really exciting. Welcome, everyone. We are going to give folks some time to find their link and sign on. We were just talking before we started the webinar about how impressed we were with those of you that were sitting here waiting for it to start. That level of organization is something that I aspire to. I am usually frantically either running from one meeting to another one or desperately searching for the link that somehow I did not put in my calendar. So good job, people. As you come in, I would love it if you would drop your name and your organization or where you are if you're not with an organization. Already did. Oh my gosh, I've already started. Into the chat. When I give these webinars, somebody else moves my slides because I can't talk and move slides at the same time. And I've just proved that by accidentally advancing the slides already. Welcome, everyone. Yes, there will be a recording of this. It will be sent out. We usually try to get it uploaded the next day and sent out to you guys tomorrow or next week. Oh, Karen already mentioned it. There we go. Welcome. Hi, Brad in Toronto. Hi, Randy. I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. It's in the chat. Randy Rosen from Food Rescue Dude has a tremendous website on getting started in food rescue. There's a ton of resources there. So if you are looking to start scaling your food rescue or starting a food rescue organization, that's another great resource for you. Yep, and we've got a guide as well on our website. Welcome, folks. We're going to give folks another minute. It's only 1:01. I would still be scurrying looking for my link. I hope everyone is enjoying some spring weather. It is sunny in Pittsburgh, which is very rare, but cold. Welcome, everyone. As you come in, if you wouldn't mind dropping your name and location or organizational affiliation in the chat, we would appreciate that. I see folks from Potluck. Welcome. And we don't waste. It's snowing in Alberta, Canada. Well, that makes sense. Welcome. Hi, Rachel. All right. Okay. I will begin with our introductions and our usual starting notes while folks are still filtering in. So thank you, everybody. If you are a old hat at our webinars, you'll know that this year we've split our webinars into sort of two series. One is more for organizations that are already doing food recovery, who are maybe looking for some extra, programming or to boost their operations. And then we really get a lot of folks I know that are either new to food recovery or just starting food recovery or really in the first stages of scaling. And so we wanted to dig down into that content a little bit more instead of having that be one webinar. So this week, we're going to talk about food donors, which of course is the most critical component or one of the most critical components of food recovery, because you can't recover food if you don't have any food donors. A few housekeeping notes. Drop your questions into the Q&A as we go. try to avoid putting them in the chat. Sometimes that goes very fast and it's hard to keep track of them. So if you put them in the Q&A, we will be sure to answer those at the end of the webinar. As I said, this is being recorded and we will send out a recording of the presentation within the next few days. And at the end, we will provide links for the coming webinars as well as to request a follow-up meeting. Our This is our third in the series. Today's lesson is food donors. And next month, we'll talk about distributions and, in fact, working with non-traditional organizations. But I'm super, super excited to welcome today Becca Simon, who is the Food Donor Relations Manager at 412 Food Rescue and also the recent recipient of a 40 Under 40 award locally, which is well-deserved. Becca is a really dynamic team member and really incredible. She's done so many great things with our donor program, including taking some donors that were really kind of difficult to work with or whose operations made it them a really tricky donor and streamline it and make them really great partners. So I'm so happy that you are joining us today, Becca. Thank you for being here, and I am going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen, and thank you for the kind words. It's been a really great honor just working at 412 Food Rescue. I've been here about a year and a half, but I'm not new to the food system world. Been doing various work, including interning at Emergency Food Network in Tacoma, Washington / Lakewood, Washington, doing Food Corps in Montana. So it's been a really great ride, and just been really grateful for being able to learn from this entire network too on how this all works, because it can be daunting, but I'm happy to share what I know and what I've learned in the last year and a half too, and hopefully pass along some helpful tips for those who are starting up or have already started and might be hitting some walls. So yeah, just to get things started, I just want to say, like, food donors are so different. Every single one has so many different needs, different wants. It can be kind of hard to kind of create a system that works for everyone. So a lot of the stuff will be kind of like a list of what to do, but just remember, cater towards your audience, learn about them, because everyone is different in how they operate. But as you're getting started, I think the biggest thing that you should do as someone who's getting started with food recovery or just trying to get involved with food donors is getting educated. So we can go in to say we want food and everything, but we need to know the laws. We need to know the policies that exist that protect us and protect them. So your founding law, we're looking at the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act right there. So I know on the next slide, we'll share some resources about that, but that is the founding law that protects you, protects your donors, helps ensure that all the food that you are getting is safe and is going to be able to be tracked too. So recalls happen, but we use the system to make sure that the food that goes out can be recalled properly too. Other things to get educated on, ReFed, a wonderful national organization focused around food waste and food recovery, has a policy breakdown for each state. So it might be kind of daunting trying to look through all these policy guides or policy like initiatives in your state, but ReFed does a really wonderful job of breaking down what foods can be donated after date, what foods can be donated just in general. Check that out. Like I just listed on there, Pennsylvania's. One of the biggest thing that I hear from food donors in PA is that they're not legally allowed to donate milk, which isn't necessarily true. So knowing your state's policy versus internal policy of that company is really important. You don't want to go in and go, you're wrong, but you can go and show that the policy does exist to protect them at the state level too. And try to work with them and try to sit down with them and figure out, why does this internal policy exist? What can we do to help make you feel better about the safety of the food being transported? Are there certain requirements that you guys might have for us? I know certain donors we work with will only work with our food bank partners because they have a larger fleet of reefer trucks who can pick up larger amounts of dairy, and they want that reassurance and protection that it stays in temp. While the TCS process is approved for that, not everyone feels comfortable with that. So trying to meet donors where they're at is really important for that. And then last thing with that, go get food safety and food safety certified. So there's so many different organizations out there. I'm sure we can send out a resource, but ServSafe is the one I have. Even just getting the food handler or the manager level, which is a lot more intensive, is really helpful. It teaches you a lot around food safety. You'll go to restaurants after and question everything about how they're storing things, but you'll be able to go into a food donor and understand that your food that you're going to be rescuing is going to be safe. So it's really critical to get that.
Yeah, just being able to use that language with them to talk about time and temperature controlled for safety, like TCS food. Just hearing the word TCS food, a lot of donors like, okay, okay, like you know what you're talking about, and it really allays their concerns pretty quickly.
Exactly. You want to put them at ease first and foremost. So yeah, this is the bread and butter. So as some call it the BEGSA or the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act, created out of the Clinton administration, is really there to help protect you. There's a lot that's still expanding with this law too, as we can see in 2023. That was expanded to include donations given by nonprofits. So we actually receive a lot of donations from various nonprofits, whether that be excess food that they receive or even like meals and home delivery, like grocery bags. So there's a lot that can come out of that. So even like recognizing that food donors don't necessarily need to be a food retailer, you can also look at other means. So if you have a large pantry that's has too much food and doesn't have support to get it out, those are logistics supports that you can provide. Awesome. Thanks, Jen. So what's their why? So you got educated on food safety and the laws that protect you and them, but trying to figure out who your audience is the most important thing. So anytime I'm trying to meet with a food donor, whether that be a new one or one we've had in our system forever, I really try to take time to research their website, look up any news articles about them, learn what they're doing, figure out how are they involved in the community? Are they really doing a lot of nonprofit work? Are they volunteering? Are they focused around sustainability? I like to look and, see if they have ESG goals or environmental social governance goals. Are they connected with the UN Sustainable Development Goals? You want to figure out what that why is. So if it's community, how are you bringing that sales pitch to it? Can you bring them to a pantry that they might be contributing food to and help show them what their food will do for the community? If it's environmentally minded, what are you doing to help kind of portray those metrics? Are you showing CO2 mitigated from these processes? Talking about methane and food waste reaching the landfill and what impact that is. So just really helping reassure those donors that you're helping support their goals too is really critical. We're getting closer and closer to that 2030 goal line, and a lot of companies don't always think about food waste in that ESG. So helping them understand that they can play a large role in that too, whether that be removing food from the landfill or the meal component of UN Sustainable Development Goals. There's so much they can do to get involved and learn about how they can help support their community while they're doing environmental support too. So there's so many ways to look at those metrics too. Would suggest just diving into them a little bit first and getting an idea. I take a lot of courses on LinkedIn around UN Sustainable Development Goals or ESG goals. It helps me better understand and have that same kind of language as Jen was saying earlier when we were going in to talk with a donor. You want to show them that you're knowledgeable on what they're excited about.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you'll even find that there might be multiple whys depending on who you're talking to in the company. So you might go into a grocery store and the folks that are on the ground, and I think you're going to talk a little bit about this later, but they have one concern, whereas the people in the corporate office or the upstairs management has other concerns. So really listening to what it is that they're saying and what they care about so that you can show them how you can partner with them on that.
Exactly. Yeah, that buy-in is really key on all levels. Like up top, they really love that kind of policy and, sustainability focus, but what's the why at the bottom? Really getting educated on that and, talking with employees. And we'll talk more about that, but that's a really great point, Jen. Awesome. So then once you've done the food safety, once you've made that pitch, really getting organized and showing your food donor that you're put together for this is really critical. You don't want to show, bits and pieces here and there, but you want to really think through what does a proper onboarding package look like, or what does a proper prospect package look like? So how are you helping portray what your guidelines are? How do you want the food package? who they'll be reaching out to, what's the step-by-step process, how are they being protected and all this. So what I do is basically kind of create a folder, which includes our MOU or donor agreement. We have food safety guidelines that have images. I want things to be as quick and easy for people to see as possible, because when you're thinking about that why, there's people at the bottom, this is not their full-time job. They're doing this usually out of the kindness of their hearts, or they're being instructed to in their jobs. So you have to think in that mindset, what is easiest for them? And it's great to even ask that question, like, how do you want this information portrayed to your team? I usually will try to ask that with our donors because it can get complicated, and we'll talk about, other partners going in and taking food, or other nonprofits that are also doing rescues. It can get very caught in the weeds or confusing for their employees. So being able to differentiate yourself that way is really important too. In terms of food safety guidelines, I would suggest working with your county or even ServSafe, like any of those food certified safety organizations, to look through your guidelines too and make sure that those make sense, that they're safe, that you're following that TCS practice with them. We had like a 2 week long debate about milk. It can be a really tough topic because some of these food safety things aren't quite up to par yet. So milk will say you can drink it up to 2 weeks after expiration date. But that doesn't include, the transport time in between, the change in temp. So you really have to think about those guidelines too. How are you keeping the milk in temp? And how are you understanding how the food's going to be stored when it gets there? So 412, we keep it 3 to 5 days post expiration because anything can happen between at that 2 week point too. So we try to avoid the curdling of the milk. Is a sense there, but really just understanding those guidelines is really important. Helping kind of depict, we have an 80-20 ratio for produce. What does that actually look like to a donor? Like, berries of an 80-20 rule is very different when 80% of the berries are looking good and 20% are looking bad. It might be harder to pick through, but things like tomatoes or apples, things that are safer when mold is touching it. Helping educate those donors on that 80-20 ratio and what you mean by that is really important too. So imagery is really great. I know for the FRH drive, we have a lot of guidelines, a lot of different organizations have similar structures. So there's a lot of great resources out there for that. Package. Oh yeah. Jen, did you have something to
No,
add
I
there?
just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the 80-20 because the idea with that is how do we quickly convey to folks something that they can remember and they can use. And so if you've got a produce clerk at a grocery store or somebody in a warehouse and they're quickly deciding whether or not something can be donated, 80-20 is easy to remember. If it's 80% good, 20% bad, super easy to remember. The other one we also use, which is very easy to apply, is if this was in your kitchen, would you consider this salvageable?
Yeah.
And that's just that, like, again, talking to them in language that works for them, that they can understand.
Exactly. Or even just like individuals, like if you wouldn't eat it, don't donate it. Just thinking about those quick shorthand like phrases like that associate with people is really helpful too. So food safety guidelines, that's like the critical piece you need to have, make it easy, make it accessible, make it visual too. Packaging guidelines, this can be a number of packaging guidelines. So, what we look at is both on a fleet rescue side and a volunteer rescue. So, you want to help your donors understand how it's safely going to be transported and what they need to do to help make that food safely packaged. So for our fleet, we have general rules that fit a lot of logistic based policies. So like no pallets above 6 feet tall. You don't want pallets falling over in your truck and hurting anyone. You don't want pallets that are double stacked or anything like that that could tip over. So making sure you understand, what your fleet team needs, the safety of the warehouse people too, if you're doing larger pickups. And then on the volunteer level, you don't want food spilling in anyone's car. So making sure that they're sealing and properly packaging food. So for prepared foods, working with them to understand the use of like hotel pans and aluminum trays to repackage food for to go, or even to go containers, having them just save or invest a little in that. There's a lot that they get out of tax benefits by partnering with groups like us. And so using that as, a helpful base of we're helping you rescue the food, help us package it so we can get it out there. So understanding that you have a boundary there, but also they might have a boundary. So again, talk through these guidelines with your donor. Make sure they feel comfortable and understand them too. You don't want to just leave them with it. You want to talk through and make sure that they get the full picture and they agree to it. And with that, you want some sort of MOU to kind of bind all that together. So they're following that, they're donating the things they said they would donate on the days they would donate. They're following those safety protocols, packaging protocols. An MOU is not a legally binding contract. So, anything can be revisited at any time, but it helps kind of create that partnership and make it a little more formal and solidified. The other piece that I usually include in my onboarding packages is a contact card, whether that be my business card or what I try to do is have a dispatch card with my card attached because you want them to know to call your dispatchers, to reach out to them when the food rescues are ready. I will give them my phone number if there's issues that they can call in and report to me because I want my dispatchers to be focused on getting the food out, not having to deal with like a issue of, their fridge dying and they need like support right then and then. I'm trying to help mitigate those kind of concerns or dispatch can be focused on other things. So it's up to you on how you do that, but I'd really suggest making sure it's clear what kind of contact they're trying to go to. Another piece that we've been working on too is making schedules and step-by-step processes. So having a one pager on how a rescue works, how they're going to be contacted, how the volunteer will be getting to them. I turned off notifications still that they went. Is really helpful for them. Print out a clear visual of what the schedule is. So there's no question about, when you're coming, who's going to be coming, what they're grabbing. We work with the food bank a lot actually on this because we share a lot of pickups. And that can be a problem that you might run into as well. If you're doing shared pickups with any other organizations, they'll obviously call you by the different organization, give you the wrong food sometimes. That's okay. They're dealing with a lot. So make their jobs easier, work with the various nonprofits that are picking up there to create a joint schedule. So you would know exactly when they're going and the store knows exactly when you all are coming.
And I want to add that you don't have to have a dispatcher. You can be a one-person show. Um, it's still, these are still really, really solid pieces of advice because what it does is it shows that you've got your act together,
Mhm.
right? You know what you're doing. You're a professional organization, not some fly-by-night, whatever. So if you're trying to convince a donor to donate to you, that gives them that level of security that their food is in good hands. And so even if you are just one person, right? Give them that confidence that you know what you're doing and you mean it and you're going to be a good partner for them.
Absolutely.
Oops.
Awesome. And then next, make it simple. So convincing donors that this is worth doing by making it as small a lift as possible. So you want them to be able to understand the process and you want them to be committed to the process, but you also need to help make the process part of their system. Food waste can be a big topic of stigma in a lot of kitchens, a lot of food warehouses. A lot of people don't want to know or admit that they have food waste and or they might not have time to deal with it. It can be a whole lot easier to throw out the food than repackage it and save it. So work with them to understand what their current capacity is. Help them understand what ways you can support them. Like we have worked with various donors who don't always have capacity to package things, especially on larger events. Like last night, we were working at the Gordon Food Show, Gordon Food Services Food Show. We brought 10 volunteers to come package food onto a pallet and take it out ourselves. So sometimes you have to be flexible, use your network to help support them and help kind of show that it can be doable. I used to work with an amazing person named John Polly at UPMC who started working with his teams to build it into their workflow to rescue food. So not making an and to their job description, but a part of it. That's something that you can talk with your food donor about. A lot of them might be open to that, of just thinking through how they put this into their workflow. Because instead of a worker going and tossing the food into a trash can, they can toss it into a aluminum tray or, putting that box of apples aside in the cooler. So just really making sure that you're meeting their needs is really important. and think creatively. Jen mentioned some of the innovations that we talked about, like, and did this past year to help our donors who didn't always have capacity. Like, we're about to start up with our PNC Park bun packing events again. But at PNC Park, we work with the Pirates and Airmark to repackage around 4 watermelon bins full of buns, hamburger buns, bread, so many baked goods that they couldn't necessarily repackage for us. But we were able to go in and bring volunteers each time to repackage so our fleet has an easier time to load it onto their truck and load it off. So really making sure that that's built in too, try to get that creative mindset with it. It can be really fun too and open up a lot of opportunities. Yeah, Jen.
One thing when we started up that we heard from donors is that there were some charities that were sort of expecting them to operate in a certain way or demanding that they donate or something like that. And while, yeah, we do definitely want them to donate and want to convince them that this is something good for the community, they still are our customers, right? We're serving them and we want to take care of them, and creating a donor program that makes them feel like they are being served by you is so helpful in one, getting donors to sign on, and two, donor retention.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people kind of make it more of like almost a sales pitch, but you're providing them that free service by picking up their food waste, really helping them educate around how much they'd save by, no longer tossing food in this dumpster, or, if they're composting, that could be the first solution is food rescue first, hopefully reduce the amount they have to compost or throw into their landfill bills. So making sure they're educated on that, tax benefits too. Just get educated on that as well. And then the last point here on making it simple, as Jen stated, not everyone will have dispatchers or that structure to their food rescue organization, but at least with our team, I really work with our dispatchers to make sure instructions are clear and that volunteers are following through on this. So after your first rescue or first couple rescues, go back, check in with everyone, go talk with the donor, go talk with the volunteer, the nonprofit, make sure everyone felt really good about that process. And if it didn't feel good, go back and revise it. It doesn't have to be stuck in a bad loop. That's how you start losing donations.
Yeah. There was a question in the chat, which I'm just gonna take now, which violates all my own rules, so I apologize, but I saw it and my dopamine receptors went ding. Somebody asked if we give donors receipts when we pick up a donation. Absolutely not. That is gonna slow down the process. It's gonna make things complicated. And if you want to scale your food rescue, definitely don't get in the habit of that. You can provide receipts for sure, but that's an after the rescue process.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unless you have a computer system that can automatically print those out for you. But, you would, especially if you have volunteers doing this, they're not going to bring the receipt. Think about what's going to make it easier for you. A lot of this can be done online too. So there's various programs between Bloomerang, or I think Salesforce has that capability now too, to do those tax receipts.
Yeah, and early days when we did not have those tools, we would literally just make a Word doc and say, this person donated this to us, and we're a 501(c)(3), and they can use that. So
Yeah,
if they've got accountants savvy enough to be able to take that receipt and turn it into their tax advantage, then that's fine.
absolutely. Awesome. And then as you're getting started, start small. There is no need to go get the biggest fish right away. You want to show the donors that you are capable, that you are committed, and you have this process down. So with every food rescue, it's generally just rule of thumb, start with the low hanging fruit. Go to bakeries. They always have that day old bread. They're already probably working with other donation partners, and it's pretty built in. It's easier for packaging. They already have that started. Our folks here at Mediterra are amazing at that. They'll break it down by bags and type, but not every donor needs to do that. I think our packaging guideline says as long as it's covered, it's fine. Some of them will give us smoosh stuff, but we'll get that corrected. But it could all be bagels in a giant food safe garbage bag. But just making sure that they are aware of those basic guidelines, that's a great place to start. And it's great food too, because it's fresh, it's handmade usually, and it's quick to turn around, and you can usually get bakery pretty much every day at various bakeries. But with that, once you start small, you can start building up. You'll have that backup. You can go to that bakery that you started with and show, and even bring new food owners to talk with those folks and tell them, explain how the process works. They'll vouch for you too if your program's working. You like just want that win at the end of the day. You want your donors to be able to vouch for you and show that you have a amazing working partnership. You want to be able that person that they call on. So be reliable, build that up first, and protect yourself. You don't want to go in too hard and just have a million rescues that you can barely handle, or if you don't have enough volunteers. Be sustainable with your process. Think about your capacity and don't burn yourself out either, like protect yourself mentally and physically.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the number one objections you might hear is that it doesn't work. We tried that and it didn't work. People didn't show up. And so you need to be reliable. You need to prove to them that it will work. If you promise to be there, which is why starting small is so smart. If you take on a lot of different stores, a lot of different rescues happening, and you don't have the volunteer base for it, you're going to be stuck doing it. And if you can't manage it, then you're going to burn out your donors as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. And this is kind of the golden standard for 412 Food Rescue and a lot of our Food Rescue Hero partners, but be the and, not the or. So it can feel kind of competitive, especially when you're going in, there's other organizations already picking up food. You don't want to go in and say, I'm better than this org. You want to be able to go in and say, how can I also support? Where else can I fill the space? Most of the time, a lot of those various nonprofits that they're already working with can only take certain foods or only have capacity on certain days. So work with that team to build trust and show that you're also there and that you partner with these orgs too, build those intentional partnerships to show good grace. And then go in and figure out, okay, can I add in some days? Are there days that I can go pick up meat or produce? What are things that this organization is not picking up that you guys really see a lot of waste of? So being flexible, is kind of the key. That's something that our org does really well. Even though we don't have a warehouse, we're able to move food from point A to point B that day. So being flexible where the other nonprofit can't be, it really just sends it all together. You're both doing amazing work doing food recovery, food's going out to the community. So be the and, not the or. We've really built a lucrative partnership with our local food bank here. I really tried to work with them, and figure out where can we help support you all? Can we support logistics too? That's the other question you can ask. If you run into a Kroger's or, any other grocery store giant, and there's already another nonprofit picking up there. If it's a small pantry, go talk with them. They might not have the resources to do that pickup all the time. Help them out, onboard them into your system, and offer them your services. You're able to give them reports. You're able to connect them with more food donation opportunities that way too. So really building that collaborative conversation in it is key.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes they don't have the volunteers or the hours to go pick up that food. You're doing them a service by helping them with those logistics. And if they have a volunteer that loves it and wants to keep it, no problem. It's that flexibility. Like we're all in this together. This is
Mhm.
good stuff that's happening. Let's support each other. And as you said, be the end, not the or. I think that's so important. Thank you for sharing that part.
For sure. Awesome. This is something that's been like my bread and butter throughout food work, is having champions. In my time working in food systems, I've always been given the advice to find the food champion, which is great. It's wonderful. You'll find that like superhero, but that's not a sustainable thing in the long run. So what I really try to focus on is building a team of champions at my food donors. You want multiple people to be bought in for multiple reasons. So we talked about, those various whys. So on the corporate level or higher up level, they're going to have that buy-in. They're going to love it. But what's that why down where people are actually pulling the food waste, putting those rescues together? How are you helping, build that champion there? I really, whenever I go and onboard food donors on various levels, I always ask, how do you like to be appreciated? How do you like to be celebrated? because in the end, while you're providing that service to them, they're part of your team. You can't get food out without them. So making sure that they feel like they're part of that process, they're part of the team is really key. Everyone in the organization who's donating plays that integral role there. So making sure they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel celebrated is really important. Whether that be a coffee party, getting them a carafe of coffee, or getting donuts, or bringing them swag. You just want them to be part of that conversation consistently. I also will try to make sure, like if I'm in a kitchen, it's not just the head chef I'm talking to. Who are the line cooks that are part of this? Who are the dishwashers? Having everyone understand the process is going to be key. Not everyone will be bought in, but as long as they're educated, that's the end goal. As long as you have like 2 or 3 people to start with, that's a champion, that'll be the best way to go. Because if you think about it too, you might have Larry at Giant Eagle who's been doing this for 20 years, who's about to retire, and that's the only person you boosted up the entire time. That transition is going to be so much harder. So think about that sustainability. It might feel easy to go in with that short-term mindset, but you want to think long-term. How are we keeping this going in over time?
Yeah, one of my favorite things that ever happened while tabling is it was at PNC Park, our local baseball park for Earth Day or something last year. And I was tabling and somebody came up and said, "Oh, I work at," and it might have been Giant Eagle, but it's somewhere. "I work at so and so and we donate to you. We love you guys." And
Yeah,
having somebody that is again, that produce clerk or a line cook or somebody come up and really be engaged in our mission and feel like they are part of how we're making an impact, because they are, and because Becca told them so. And they know it and they hear it from us. That was really, really gratifying to me. That was actually one of my favorite tabling moments ever.
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. Let's see. And then just to kind of end cap with that, there's a number of ways you can develop that champion or champions, as I say. The easiest one is sending reports. You don't want to leave your donors hanging, especially if they'd like to know, like where the food is going. I have a number of food donors who ask for monthly reports. I think I'm up in the 50s now that I send monthly reports to, which, can be tedious, but in the end, I'm so excited that they're engaged with the process. Now we have much better reporting system. So thank you to Sean for making a lot of that much more automated for me. But as you're starting out, start small with it, figure out tonnage, figure out meals distributed. Refed has some really great calculations for that. Even CO2 they can do on their website. So starting with those formulas is really helpful too and helps paint a picture.
And
Uh,
I just want to interrupt you there before you go on, because I think I want to draw a distinction between how you describe that and the question. The
yeah.
question was receipt, and sure, give them
Mhm.
a receipt, but also give them that impact.
Yeah.
Right? Give them that report. If you're just giving them a receipt, make sure it has some impact on there, like thank you for providing X number of meals or having this CO2 impact or going to this number of community partners. Because that helps, again, it's a point of contact and communication with your donor and helps them feel like they're part of that impacted mission.
Exactly. And, they don't have to be pretty either. The one in here is a much nicer version of what I send to donors. It could be an Excel sheet, it could be just a Google Doc with everything written up, it can be an email. They just want to know. And as you get better, that's just a reward for them if you improve your systems and improve your process. But just start where you can with that. And do the report, do the receipt. Make sure, some of them don't even want the receipt. They might just want the report. So just figure out what they want when you're onboarding them and make that part of your process. Another fun thing that we've started really doing is doing a lot more blog posts following the food. We'll have one hopefully releasing in the next few weeks talking about our event from last night, where we got some comments from our nonprofits who received. But a fun way to really connect your donor to your nonprofits is having them meet with each other, or going collecting stories from both sides and sending them the blog where they can see where their impact is touching the org that they're getting food to. So I have a lot of nonprofits that connect with like our UPMC hospital systems, and those chefs there are amazing. They always want to know where their food is going. So I'll send over social media posts when they get posted on the like Facebook page of that nonprofit. Just really helping celebrate them is a fun way to do that on both your social media and theirs. And it's a really great way. I'm not a marketing person, but it's a great way to connect with your donor on that level too. So having social media, having blog posts to shout them out is really fun. Go take photos of your donors in action, have them go out and do a rescue and have them see where their food is going. And that's a really great way to get them onboarded too and help them understand the process. Go take your food donor on a food rescue. It'll be very confusing for them when they first figure it out. I have a lot of food donors who are legacy donors who didn't even know we have an app, and that's okay because it's not geared towards them, but they get to now know that their donation is trackable that way. And lastly, provide gifts. Like I said, something as simple as coffee or food is so appreciated. Even though they work in the food industry, they don't always want to eat the food that they're cooking that day, or they don't want to have to cook for themselves. Make that a nice gift for them, go get them a pre-made catered event meal or go get them box lunches, figure out ways to budget that or even work with your other food donors to see if they would be willing to do that as like an in-kind donation too. So just being able to kind of create that swing of share of food is a fun way to get people involved too. And then invite them to go see the recipient's organization. I recently had a donor reach out who wanted to be part of a volunteer day at the place that their food goes to. So just helping them connect that way is a really just full circle thing right there. It's going and then they get to go help package it again. So it's really cool and really beautiful.
I love those moments. All right, we're going to take questions in a second. Thank you, Becca. That was all super helpful. I do want to, I dropped this into the chat as well. Just call out something you said that I think was probably the most valuable piece you can take away from this is start where you can, do what you can. You can build up. It is, you don't have to be perfect from the get-go. You don't have to do everything, but sort of set your trajectory and get started. And as you get better at this, as more people learn about who you are, you will be able to do more and more of these things. Before we go to questions, I just want to call out what we're going to be talking about over the next month. Next month, we are going to look at expanding your nonprofit distribution network. If you start scaling food recovery, you're going to find out really quickly that the food pantry system is not adequate to accept everything you rescue. 80 to 90% of what we rescue is fresh. And food pantries just can't turn it around quickly. So really looking at how you can expand that network by working with non-traditional partners. We're going to have Michelle Sandage from the Pittsburgh Housing Authority join us. She is I think, community relations manager and has been with 412 Food Rescue since the beginning. She's got a lot of really great insight on how you can build a food rescue program with a partner that is not necessarily a food nonprofit. We are also, for Earth Month, going to be looking at household food waste. We're going to look at both how you can reduce your food waste, but also how you can help your supporters, your volunteers, your stakeholders as a food recovery organization attack this final frontier of household food waste, which is the sort of the one category that is not coming down very quickly. And then finally, just a reminder, our food rescue conference will be happening again virtually live this year from October 16th and 17th. The RFP, request for speakers and proposals, I think has been emailed out. Maybe it only went to previous speakers, but will be going live soon. So if you are interested in talking about new innovative ideas in food recovery and you have something exciting to share, please be on the lookout for that and let us know. And with that, I'm actually going to stop sharing and we will open it up for questions. And I see there is at least one. Okay, so this is from Second Helpings Atlanta. Says, thanks, Jen and Becca. Would you be able to share an example of the onboarding packet so we can use it as an inspiration? And we certainly can do that. But I wanted to ask Becca, especially if you are, if you're new to this or you don't have an onboarding packet, again, like tick list, what would you put in that? What type of things?
Yeah, I mean, like, definitely your card, get that out there, have information about how your dispatch works, what times they're available, especially if that donor is going to be doing what we call like ad hoc rescues instead of weekly. Know that they know who to call, make sure that that's available and ready. Keep your food donation guidelines in there so they know right then and there what can they donate or what can't they donate. Any, packaging guidelines or just like that step-by-step process. I try to have that one pager that's just like 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what's going to happen. Have that in there so they know what's going to happen too. But those are, like, I think, the integral things. Other things that you can kind of get in there too, if you're working with a larger team, think about like other ways that that team can get involved with your organization. I include information around like volunteering, like beyond just donating food, how would they like to interact with us? Sponsorship opportunities. Be creative, work with your other teammates if you are in a larger team that has those resources. Food donors aren't just food donors, they're part of the community. So having them be part of your team in more drastic ways is going to be really key.
Yeah, and I know it's a little bit sort of trite, but really giving them something, handing them something physical, it makes you feel real to them, right? It comes across as professional and together and legitimate and like you're a real organization. And especially early days when you're starting out, having sort of that like physical presence is really important, especially because a lot of food recovery orgs don't have warehouses. So it shows them, it gives you an air of legitimacy.
Exactly. And we have like branded folders here. You don't have to do that. Just get like a folder that's the color of your org, Do something as simple as that. That way it's organized, it's in one place for them too. And they don't have to do the work of organizing all that paperwork and they have it ready to pull.
And stickers are actually really cheap and they're
Yes,
great swag. People love to grab stickers and you can throw one on a folder and now you've got a branded folder.
exactly. Great point, Jen.
Well, I've done that. That is what we used to do.
There, yeah.
All right. What has been your best practice for finding new donors and introducing a food recovery program if they've never used one?
Yeah, so I'll split this into two parts. So best practice for finding new donors. As simple as going on Google Maps and kind of creating an asset map of what all is there, start in certain regions, I'd say, like, you can do a widespread outreach, but if you start, say, like neighborhood by neighborhood or zip code by zip code, you're gonna have a lot easier time of managing and organizing and tracking that. So build out maps. Google Maps has like a pin program, so like you can go build your own map and upload data to that, including like addresses. So even if you find like a list of grocery stores in your neighborhood, you can start tracking that visually. But on the very base of that, what I do is create prospect sheets. So right now we're currently expanding into a newer county. We've been there, but we just haven't really been there in the same way we've been in our main county. So what I've been doing is just as I'm looking on Google Maps, as I'm going places, I write down the name of that restaurant or food retailer, and then I track those contacts. So you are gonna probably have to reach people in various ways, and you might have to do a lot of touch points with people, which is okay. I say I'm nothing if not annoying and persistent, but it pays off. You want to be bugging them because people are busy. Jen gets it. It's been like years of this. It never ends. It's gonna be like this forever, and that's okay. But you again want to meet them where they're at. So I will go send an email, I'll send a call, I'll go visit in person. I see there was a post just in here from Akila. Do you send an email first or visit them in person first? Depends on if I'm out and about that day. I will go in person sometimes, but you also don't want to just like spring into someone's schedule and, force themselves to learn about food recovery when they're about to go on their lunch break. So I try to keep that as the last pursuit unless I'm just going in and dropping like a prospect folder just with some information about our program. And then I'll follow up via email or call. So it's up to you how you do that, but just being mindful of your donor is really important that,
Yeah.
don't go during a lunch rush. Don't go during a morning rush, don't go during any rush at all because they will not be happy to talk with you.
So the week before Thanksgiving.
Yes, exactly. But just try multiple ways. Yes, Akila, be a freaking customer first might help. Yeah, get in there, get to know them too, have them volunteer like before you even get to the donor conversation. There's a number of ways to do that, but just keep trying is what my mentality is with a lot of donors because sometimes it can be hard to get in there. People are busy. It might be a bad time of year for them. But, in the end, most donors will actually send you a thank you for following up with them because they want to do it, but they just didn't have time that month. So just keep a log, keep a calendar rolling of your prospect outreach. And, at a certain point, you can probably just call it a day. But, there might be new staff within the next 6 months. So just being mindful of that and just trying multiple ways of contact. Try to meet them where that need is too. And I can't remember the second half of that question because it's gone now, but Jen, maybe you
If you
remember.
can, if you can get into a conversation with them too, because again, oftentimes the question is, well, we asked and they said no,
Yeah.
right? I never take no for an answer.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not obnoxious, but I work through their no, like, oh, okay, well, help me understand what it is that doesn't work for you, right?
Mhm.
What is it that is preventing you from doing this? I want to understand to see if I can help overcome them. And there are occasionally places where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a real no.
Yeah.
They really legitimately don't have leftovers. They give it to their staff or something
Yeah.
like that, right? Like,
Exactly.
hey, cool. Now I understand, right? There really wasn't an opportunity. But a lot of times like, oh, we're not allowed. Well, why? Do you think it's illegal or do you think is it a corporate policy? And maybe we can investigate that. What are the objections? And really getting into the nuances can help you get past those no's.
Exactly. In the same way that we say, like, know their why, know their no, like go and try to figure that out.
Yeah.
And a no might be no right now, but it doesn't mean it's a no in the future. Like a grocery store might already have a partnership and has already had all their food waste figured out. But if that nonprofit misses a pickup that day, or they can no longer pick up, or God forbid their fridge dies, like
Outage, yeah.
be that on ready call person, show them that, all right, not right now, but if anything ever happens, call this number and try that,
Yeah.
and first time they try that, make sure your dispatch is just, ready for that,
Yeah.
let them know. I always
Really.
post on our channel, like new ad hoc donor, don't know when, but just be ready, because at any point they could call on you to help and you want to have flexibility with that. So just be ready.
Yeah. And so when it is a real no, like, no, we have all our needs taken care of, again, like Becca said, don't make an enemy of them, just be the end, not the yours. That's great. So happy that that food is getting into the community. That's the goal, right? But if something happens like the power outage, give us a call. And we've gotten a lot of donors that have come back around that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? We're kind of nearing the end. Please get anything final, any other questions you have into the chat or the Q&A so we can answer them. This has been a great discussion. Again, I want to reiterate, know their why, know their no, don't give up, do what you can. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. The key to a robust donor program is starting somewhere. It's just getting started and getting that first donor in the door, whether it's a bagel store or a big grocery chain. You have to start somewhere, and small is better.
Absolutely. And I'm happy if anyone ever needs to ask a question later on, feel free to email me. I love sharing info or connecting you to the right resource.
Yeah, Becca's a great resource for that. There is another question. For Latino stores, do you translate everything you would give to a new donor, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, we are still figuring out this process. This is something that I've been trying to like get into our budgets too, because you want to be able to also pay translation services. So you want that translation for if you're going in person and for your materials. Here in Pittsburgh, we have an org called Global Wordsmith that's geared towards nonprofits, that helps them with those translation fees for a lower amount. But it's still, a cost that you need to think through when you're getting this done. There are some services that can do it for free, but just make sure, if you have someone that's fluent in that language, make sure they vet that, because if you put something in Google Translate, that might not be 100% accurate. So utilize your resources, start small, like we said, and figure out, what communities you're serving to. We serve a wide variety of folks from all over the world too. So making sure that you have multiple different languages available for that too is really key.
And I think if you are in a location that has a large Latino population or Bhutanese or Somali or something like that, and there are grocery stores that serve that community, uh, that is also something they may really want to help that community by donating and making sure that if they want,
Mhm.
those donations are going to the community that is also their customers. They may not want that though, so check, because sometimes they might feel like that's cutting into their business.
Yeah,
But it could go either way, and just make sure and you are able to provide them with the service that they want there.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
great question. Yeah, that's
yeah,
something
it's
that
a really good one.
is really important to think through because you're serving such a wide community and wide array of like backgrounds. So how are you fitting everyone's needs is really important.
Yeah, and I know certain communities have a much higher density of stores like that, so we don't have a huge co- population of stores in this city that some places have, but there's enough but that could be really vital if you're living, in Los Angeles, for example.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Becca. I appreciate you being here. You are a rock star as always, and I love hearing you talk. So we appreciate you being here. And thank you everybody for attending today. We will get these resources out to you. There's a few more in the chat that Karen is dropping in now. So I'll wait a second. So if you have a chance to go in and grab those if you want. And we will hopefully see you next month. Please sign up for the next webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Jen.
Yep. Thank you, Akila. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye, everyone.